Elite. The Houston Texans will need both the quarterback CJ Stroud and the defensive line to be elite Saturday in order to get a win versus Kansas City.
You are Locked On Texans, your daily podcast on the Houston Texans. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Battle Red Nation. I am credentialed media member and Texans football analyst John Hickman, alongside the man with the big hat and the even bigger smile, Brian Big Sarge / Playoff B Bearfield. Welcome to Friday's episode. He feels it. I know y'all feel it in the air. The Houston Texans got a game tomorrow, playoff game, a time to avenge their regular season loss. But thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On today's episode, we talk about changing the narratives. It's time to shine in prime time. That's going to be y'all Big Sarge. I don't know what he has planned for you guys, but you will want to stay until the end of the show. The Houston Texans will need CJ Stroud to be elite. And I think that's just going to be a discussion where we sit back and talk about how this young quarterback can rise to the occasion. We open up today's show looking at the defensive line, having a discussion around why they absolutely 100% need to be the best version of themselves, like Coach Wright talked about. On today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. Big Sarge,
what's going down?
It's time to hear from Coach Wright, but before we do, I just want to say this. Thank you for getting that one-on-one. We'll also put out some more clips throughout the rest of the season, throughout the week. Once we get to next week, the conversation.
John, because you gotta find out how he ended up with a black eye before the Chargers game.
A black eye before the Chargers game.
Hey,
what's going on in them D-line rooms, man?
Hey, look, the listeners. The listeners and the viewers, y'all stay tuned. We got a lot more for y'all coming up on Locked On Texans.
It's a lot of content. It's a lot of content y'all don't want to miss. Let's hear from Coach Wright.
Going up against the Kansas City Chiefs this week, playing against the champions, getting another opportunity to play against the best, who has been the best, over the last couple of years, and they've established a dynasty up there. You all, didn't play them pretty well in week 16. How good is it to be able to go back and play against this team and to be able to measure to see where you all stand as a unit?
Man, God, we always say this, man. God makes no mistakes. You know what I'm saying? We got a chance to play against that crew and see what the stadium is like, see what the vibe is like. And at the end of the day, we're focused on us. Like it's about us, and we got to do us better. And we felt like we watched that game. We had moments where we did do us, and we liked the results. And we had moments where we weren't us. We weren't is low in our pad level. We didn't attack, or we didn't rush with integrity, or we dropped the coverage. Whatever it was on us. And we feel like, man, if we focus on being the best version of ourselves, that's going to be enough to get the job done. So we really obviously respect this crew and what they've done. But like the moment we take our eyes off of what we're doing, we're not going to be the best version of ourselves. And it's going to take being the best version of ourselves to get it done. So that's the main thing. It's not making it about anything else than us doing what we need to do and being the best group we can be.
Thanks, Coach. John, I'm going to tell you right now, first of all, shout out to Coach Wright, defensive line coach for the Houston Texans. Hey, Wright, H-Town's own, Wright. And I know why you did that because, side note, he was on that national championship team, right?
Yeah.
I asked him about that during training camp, and he's like, man, the only thing I remember from that national championship season is we had Vince Young, and that's all we needed.
Yes, I think that's what a lot of people remember. That's it.
He said that's all we needed. But, John, one thing that head coach DeMeco Ryans has said throughout the week, what defensive coordinator Matt Burke has said throughout the week, what the defensive line unit has said throughout the week about Coach Rod Wright is he is one of those guys who has his position group prepared to play at all times. Said defensive coordinator Matt Burke said that the offensive line room and the defensive line room is right next to each other, and you can definitely tell which is which. And he says that they'd be so loud and so, they just be so loud, so crunking. Between Coach Wright and Coach assistant defensive line coach Nate Ollie, they have these guys prepared to play. And John, that's exactly what they're going to need heading into Kansas City on Saturday. They're going to be they're the first line and the last line of defense. If you understand what I mean by that, I know that you
break it down.
Let me break it down to the listeners and the viewers. They are the first line of defense, meaning that they are the ones that is going to have to attack that offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs, but put the pressure on Patrick Mahomes and make him uncomfortable. He is one of those quarterbacks who can perform in uncomfortable situations, but that's when he's able to get to certain spots that he likes to be. The Houston Texans defensive line is going to have to take that away from him. And we know that it starts with Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter on the ends, but those interior linemen, John, that you and I have talked about throughout the entire season, is going into Arrowhead Stadium fully healthy this time around. They have everybody this time around. Foley Fatukasi, who a lot of people don't realize in that Chargers game, in that wild card game against the Los Angeles Chargers, how much space he was able to eat up. And just being present right there, just being able to take on two guys at one time and allow the next guy to come in that's coming off a stunt, or allow his teammate to win his battle. When you look at what Danico Autry has done, when you look at what Mario Edwards has done, when you look at what Derek Barnett has done, and some of those guys, play the defensive end position as well. But John, that interior that interior defensive line, along with the Terminator, Will Anderson, and Cyborg, Danielle Hunter. By the way, all of the defensive linemen have nicknames. Coach Wright gave them to him. And he knows all of them. I mean, he can name them, he can rattle them off. And so I'm saying that to say that they're so in tune and so in line with each other. Will Anderson Jr. told me on Thursday that Coach Wright is one of those guys that you want to go to battle for. He's one of those guys that makes it so easy because he has been where we're trying to go. And what he means by that is he's played that defensive line position. So when they listen to him, they know what he has done. John, that first line of defense being that defensive line, that last line of defense being that defensive line, the last part of defense meaning that if nothing gets past that, then you don't have to worry about, the linebackers don't have to worry about what's going on. The cornerbacks don't have to worry about what's going on. The safeties don't have to worry about what's going on except handling their responsibilities. And so if they can beat that offensive line off the rip, if they can stop Pacheco, if they can make Patrick Mahomes uncomfortable, make him go make him have a couple of mistakes, then you will see how defensive line coach Rod Wright has had his unit prepared to play the entire year, which, by the way, John, they're one of the most that defensive line unit has the most depth on the team.
Yeah, seven guys that you can really trust and put out there. Once the Kansas City Chiefs moved Joe Thuney to left tackle during weeks 15 through 17, the Chiefs' interior offensive line allowed a pressure rate of 81%, 8th highest mark during that 3-game span. And you look at the Houston Texans getting Foley Fatukasi back, who they didn't have the luxury of having the first time they took on the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to be major, right? This year, 808 of their 1,700 rushing yards come from in between the tackles. A number that I really like is the Chiefs love to run up the A-gap on both sides. Now you get a Foley back, and you look at some of those Pacheco runs that may go for 4. Well, with a Foley out there on that field, some of them runs ain't going for 4 yards consistently. Some of them runs may go for 2 yards. And I'm always going to preach this, especially with an offense that has struggled like the Houston Texans. You want to make sure the opposing team's offense have a harder down the distance on third down, right? And so with getting Foley back and Aziz, who missed that game as well, those guys are going to be incredibly important for the Houston Texans' success defensively. And when I look at this defensive line for this game, and I think honestly, if we look at everything, Will and Daniil are going to be the names that's going to get all of the love. And I'm going to say this really quick. But it starts inside. How many times have we seen Tim Settle, who, by the way, is a monster for the Houston Texans this year, create that pressure on the inside? Sometimes he may get the sack. Sometimes that quarterback may bounce outside. And now you have a Will and Daniil cleaning that up, right? Or Danico Autry, who's so versatile to come inside and come outside. You know, how impactful he could be. When he got his sack last week against the LA Chargers, where were he lined up? He was lined up on the inside. And so you got a guy like that that can create pressure on the inside. And it's all about bouncing Patrick Mahomes a little bit outside of that pocket, right? And I'm also add to this, Pat Mahomes is very impactful outside of the pocket when it comes to excelling as a quarterback, creating plays outside the pocket. He has one of the better EPAs in the NFL from a quarterback standpoint when he has to create plays outside the pocket. And so it's important for the back end of that defense. D'Amico Ryans talked about, hey, our cornerbacks, our DBs, the back end of the defense, they got to be sticky to the receiver.
And John, one more player I wanted to highlight off of that defensive line, a name that isn't a household name when it comes to that defensive line unit, but stands out with this play is Tommy. I got to make sure I pronounce his name. Tommy Togai. Tommy Togai.
Big 79.
Oh yeah, they call him Tommy two times, and so he's one of those guys that a lot of people don't recognize. He's not easily recognizable, but John, when he's been in the game, he's been able to be just as disruptive as some of those other guys, and so that's why when you have that defensive line unit that has so much depth, that can constantly rotate, and John,
keep those guys fresh.
Everybody that comes in is disruptive, and they know what happened in Week 16, and they want that opportunity to avenge themselves.
Absolutely. And then when you have a productive D-line unit, that only makes the job of Aziz, of Christian Harris, of Henry T, Miles Brown, who will be playing around it, that only makes their job much easier. Now, on the flip side of that, CJ Stroud has to be elite to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. There's no way around it, so we'll talk about that when we come back. Hey, Locked On Texan fans, this is a perfect opportunity to let you guys in on the biggest kept secret. It's not even a secret anymore. It's Prize Picks. Y'all know what it is. Prize Picks is hooking y'all up all playoff long, as they've been hooking y'all up all season long. And with the playoff action, we know that football is slowly dwindling down. We may not have it after a while. However, that's where Prize Picks comes in. They give you that extra boost that you need to make the games more exciting. If you love football and want a chance to win real money while watching the games, Prize Picks is the best place for you. It's the best place to turn all of your sports opinions into cash with daily fantasy player projections. With Prize Picks, you simply pick more or less on player stats like total passing yards or rushing touchdowns for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your money. You can make your picks in less than 60 seconds. And whether you're looking for a flex play to boost your payout or you want to cash out quickly, Prize Picks has got you covered. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings, it's clear the people love this platform. They love Prize Picks. I love Prize Picks. A special offer for our Locked On NFL listeners. Download the app today and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Prize Picks. Run your game.
Welcome back, Battle Red Nation, to the Locked On Texans podcast. John, you started off this show saying elite, John. And that's exactly what Houston Texans quarterback CJ Stroud is going to have to be heading back into Kansas City, because we know that the guy on the other side, on the other sideline, is elite. First ballot Hall of Famer is going to be Patrick Mahomes. I think that this is a game, John, and I said this on the crossover show on the Locked On, the Locked On Chiefs show with Chris Clark. I said this on a crossover edition that this has to be CJ Stroud's coming out party. I know that he was very good in his he was better than good. He had an exceptional rookie year, and this season isn't as exciting as that last one was. It may not be as impactful stat-wise, but CJ was still able to lead his team to AFC South title division, lead them to the divisional round of the playoffs for 2 years in a row. But he still hasn't had that game that everybody can go back to and just be like, dang, look at what CJ Stroud did. And so, John, when you say that he has to be elite on Saturday against Kansas City, what does that mean?
Man, listen, when CJ Stroud came out on that very first pass of the game, Bobby Sloyd motioned Joe Mixon out, empty set, right? Quickly got it out to John Mechie. John Mechie fumbles, right? Throughout the game, I saw that was a trend. When we started offense get to rolling, and specifically in the second half, both times it was a Joe Mixon fumble, and then they got so far back, it seemed like 7 points was exactly, entirely too far away, rather. But when CJ Stroud can play point guard, then you see a different version of CJ Stroud because he becomes comfortable. Now, when I mean elite, the play he made to get that team going Saturday against the Chargers, on their side of the field, backed up, not a lot of hope, not a lot of room, making the play downfield to Xavier Hutchinson, that was an elite play.
Yeah.
I think the in-breaking route that Nico Collins took down, that was an elite play. The touchdown was an elite play, also considering we didn't get a chance to talk about Deontay Johnson, how he almost threw that entire play off because of his alignment and how he ran that route on that play. Yeah. But CJ gets that ball to Nico quickly. That's a touchdown, right? And so CJ had elite moments in elite throws, but for CJ to be elite to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, it's not about necessarily the throws. It's about processing. I want to see CJ Stroud process quicker. I want to see CJ Stroud, and it's going to take from Bobby Sloak on the sideline to give him the opportunities as a play caller for him to do that. But I want to see CJ Stroud be able to go out there and be an elite point guard type of quarterback. With this offensive line, it's so up and down. You may get one side playing well on one drive. You may get one group playing well on the other drive. There's extremely short-handed, no Tank Dell, no Stephon Diggs, now no Deontay Johnson. The Texans are going to have to rely on
Stover.
No Cage Stover, who's on IR. They're going to have to rely on a Nico Collins. That's okay. You're fine relying on him. But a John Mechie who had a couple of bad moments Saturday. A Dalton Schultz who continues to be underwhelming as a tight end who Houston brought back this offseason. And Xavier Hutchinson who hadn't had a lot of opportunities. Not sure who they're going to call up. Robert Woods is kind of banged up. Will he play or not? Also, with Joe Mixon being questionable for the game. So you look at all these different variables, the pressure is going to lie on the quarterback.
Yeah.
And just really quick, and for CJ Stroud to come out on top, it's really about understanding the coverages that Kansas City will be in, how they're going to play him, and knowing where the blitz and pressure is coming from. There's been times this year where I'm like, okay, CJ, just get that ball out quickly, beat that blitz. And then we'll see him do it, and we'll see positive moments from the Houston Texans offense. And so I think the Houston Texans will absolutely need CJ Stroud to be elite for 4 quarters, not just have moments, and to really bring the pressure to the Kansas City defense by keeping them on their heels.
John, I'm not going to say that CJ Stroud needs to be elite on Saturday against Kansas City. I'm going to say he just needs to be CJ.
But isn't that, I mean, based off of how we feel, is that not a young elite quarterback?
And that's what I mean. I just need him to be, I need him to be CJ. I don't need anything else attached. I just need him to walk into that game and realize I am CJ Stroud. He needs to just keep repeating that to himself. I am CJ Stroud. I am CJ Stroud, because when he is CJ Stroud, he is one of those guys that processes like that. He is one of those guys that, and I want to take you back, John, to Saturday. Remember, you said something on Saturday, And CJ said the exact same thing. Well, you said it, you and I discussed it, but you brought it up. Remember when CJ threw the interception? And I had tweeted it out that why didn't he just run the ball, right? Why didn't he just run the ball? Well, you and I discussed it after the game. You said, I'm pretty sure CJ probably went to the sideline and realized, man, I should have ran the ball after looking at the play, right?
Asked him about that in the press conference.
CJ said the exact same thing. Am I right?
Mm-hmm.
Said that. So now you're like, okay, you're getting that CJ back that goes to the sideline and realizes that he's not putting his head down, not wallowing in the mistake that he made, but going out and fixing and correcting it. One of the best things about CJ Stroud is he never really makes the same mistake twice. He may make mistakes, but he rarely makes the same mistake twice. And so with him being who he is, CJ Stroud, processing fast, using his legs, getting the ball out of his hands quicker, locating where Dalton Schultz is going to be, especially against the Kansas City defense who has had trouble holding the tight ends this season, right? Knowing that Steve Spagnuolo is going to try to throw him all different types of looks. But at this point, in 2 years, CJ, there isn't a defense that CJ has not seen, and he should be able to adjust to that. Now, John, the one thing that I like is, and I've noticed this over the last couple of weeks, especially since Titus has moved to left guard, Johnny's having a lot more time. And I think he's realizing that he has a lot more time. And when he does have that time, he's able to get more comfortable in the pocket. At first, he wasn't processing the fact that he had the time. So he was still chopping his feet. He was still patting the ball. He was still, seeing ghosts. But then as time went on, you could see, he's getting more and more comfortable in that pocket. And so, yes, while we do know that he is one of those quarterbacks who can always take it to the next level, that's what I'm saying, John. You hit the nail on the head. You say he needs to be elite, and I think that you spell elite CJ Stroud.
That's probably some HISD. That's some exciting. But to get back to the conversation before we close off, man, I think the world of CJ Stroud as a quarterback. I really do. And I'm also one of those guys that if I think you can be a star, I'm going to hold you to that, hold you accountable. And so this is where Houston needs CJ to be himself. You can't handcuff him, right? If it's 4th and 2 and y'all in scoring range, let him go out there, right?
Yeah.
The worst that can happen is you lose the game.
Yep.
And after everything you went through this year, you got back to a point where tougher schedule, maybe one of the most injured teams in the NFL alongside Detroit, and you got back.
Yeah.
And he just had a monster game, had monster moments last week. So you kind of got to live and die by CJ Stroud a little bit, right? Of course, you got Joe Mixon, you got Nico as another playmaker, and you want Joe to be playoff Joe. But when he's hot, don't take the ball out of his hands.
Yeah.
Allow him to be that quarterback. But from him, he gotta go out there and perform. And that's what we need to see. Texas fans across the nation, especially in the city of Houston, they're gonna have a watch party. CJ needs to put on for this franchise. And I'm going to be real with you. I think he can. I think he will. I think this will be one of those moments where we waited all regular season. Why not in the playoffs for you to show up and say, I'm still here. I'm still CJ Stroud.
John, I only need CJ, the final words out of his AirPods that CJ needs to hear. Allow me to reintroduce myself. My name is...
Now we got to talk about changing the narratives. Because... If CJ doesn't go out there and be elite, and if their offense isn't able to be functional and get into the end zone like they need to, then it's the same old story, right? Texans can't beat the Chiefs. Texans not showing up in prime time, not showing up in the playoffs. They'll do enough to get to the wild card weekend, but they ain't getting past the divisional. So, Sarge, you want to highlight why the Houston Texans absolutely need to change the narrative. We got more on the Locked On Texans podcast. And also, Texan fans, this is a perfect time to transition over to TurboTax, this is a message.
Would have a lower third for this?
Nah, I can't find an overlay for it nowhere. So I need to give
Oh,
a
I
raw
said lower
like that.
third overlay. Yeah. Okay.
Texan fans, this message is from our sponsor, TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with TurboTax experts who can do your taxes as soon as today. As soon as they drop, TurboTax got you covered. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day, right? Everybody got a person. Let TurboTax be your guy. Let TurboTax be your go-to. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, and everything will be 100% accurate, like we need CJ Stroud to be. So you get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live. You get the full service, real-time updates only on iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com. Guarantee. Sarge, I'm like you, man.
Yeah.
I gotta see it to believe it. Do I think we'll see it? I think there's a chance.
Yeah.
I don't want to do a score prediction. You did a great job on a crossover with the keys to prediction. Keys to victory, excuse me. But I don't want to do a score prediction. I want to see the hometown team perform for their hometown. I want to see them walk into somebody else's trap and take over their trap.
Yeah.
But they got to do it, and they got to change that narrative of the Houston Texans just not being good enough.
John, this season, what we've seen is the ups and the downs of the Houston Texans when the lights are on. You know, we watched them as they beat a Chicago Bears team in prime time. We watched them as they beat Dallas Cowboys team in prime time. But we also watched them lose to the Jets. You know, they beat the Bears on Sunday night. On a Sunday night game. They beat the Dallas Cowboys on a Monday night game, but they lost a primetime game on Thursday night to the New York Jets, a team that they should have blew out of the water, but they lost to them. They lost to the Chiefs, and many wouldn't, say that was a primetime game, but there was only 2 games played that day, and the Houston Texans was in one of them, and so they lost to the Chiefs. And then, John, not the last time, but the time before the wild card game in the Beyonce Bowl, in front of Beyonce, in front of Tina's baby girl, they lost 31-2 on Christmas Day, John, while everybody was watching and waiting. They watched the Houston Texans lay an egg, and that's putting it mildly. Joe Mixon said it was a hiccup, and I was like, well, then y'all must have had the hiccups for a long time, because that 31-2, the offense didn't even score. And so, John, in these primetime games, they have been so up and down. And you look at it and you say, which Houston Texans team is going to show up when the lights are the brightest? Because now this is single game elimination. This is everybody's watching. And then especially they're watching because they want to see, John, what the Kansas City Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls, correct?
They're looking for 3.
And a lot of people are focusing on if they can do that 3-peat. If this is going to be their Michael Jordan year. Michael Jordan made 2-3 championship runs for the Chicago Bulls. They want to see, hey, can they pull this off? And I think that, John, there's never been a team that's been able to win 3 consecutive Super Bowls like that, because I know the Patriots won back-to-back before. The Cowboys won back-to-back. If I'm not mistaken, the 49ers may have won back-to-back. But with that being said, John, the eyes are watching them. They want to see, hey, they watched as the Kansas City Chiefs looked like they struggled at times in the regular season, but now they know that the money is made, and they know that they take it up another level in starting with the divisional round, because most of the times they're not even playing in the wild card game. And so it's like a bye week for them all the time, unlike it was for Los Angeles Chargers. But, John, now everybody is going to be watching exactly like they were doing Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, the Beyonce Bowl. They're watching. What are you going to do? It is time. And with the amount of players that the Houston Texans have on their team who's played in these type of games, and I'm talking about not so much in the NFL just yet, because last season we seen against Baltimore, they didn't step up all the way. And when the lights were shining the brightest, they had a 10-10 tie at the half against the Baltimore Ravens, ended up losing that game, I think 34-10, if I'm not mistaken. But
it got bad.
You got some players on that team, John, you got some players on that team who's played in big games in bigger stadiums coming out of college. You look at what Kamari Lassiter, what did he win? 2 national championships at the University of Georgia. Derek Stingley has won a national championship. Will Anderson played for Alabama. Mechie, Henry To'oTo'o, CJ playing for Ohio State. And so as rookies, maybe that was kind of, okay, we got to get acclimated to it. They played in that last year. Now, this year, it's time for them to step up in the prime time. And, John, let me ask you a question before. Do you have anything else to say? Because I do.
No, I want to see this team give. I just want to see this team give it their all. I don't have nothing else to say.
Well, and I'm only asking you that, John, because I need you to be in a good mental headspace right now.
Okay,
because there's an old song that I like to listen to all the time, John, and it starts off, the lyrics are, I stumbled across a photograph, it kind of made me laugh, it took me way back down memory lane. And John, I'm going to take you back down memory lane, and it may cause some trauma, it may be PTSD, so I want to make sure yes, I want you to be prepared. John,
we're not going to 2007, 2008, are we?
I predicted that the Houston Texans would win 27-24 against the Kansas City Chiefs on Saturday. And one of the reasons why I did that is because I believe that the Houston Texans can be the Little Giants. I honestly and truly believe that they could be the Little Giants. And what I mean by the Little Giants, I'm not talking about the movie The Little Giants. I'm talking about the New York Giants. 2007, John.
The defensive line was crazy.
I don't know if you remember that season or not, John, but the New York Giants was 10-6. They entered into the playoffs as a wild card, right? As a wild card. Now, don't forget, before the season started, they lost their running back, Tiki Barber, to retirement. They lost Tiki Barber. The Giants had not won a playoff game in 7 years. During that season, they also lost Pro Bowl tight end Jeremy Shockey to injury. John, do you know who the New York Giants played in the last game of the regular season that year?
Oh man. Was it a 38-35 loss to the Patriots?
It was I don't think I have the score down here, John, because that was irrelevant to my point. But they played the New York Giants. The New York Giants played the New England Patriots, right?
Yeah.
What was going on with the New England Patriots that year, John? Were they trying to make history? They weren't trying to win 3 Super Bowls, but were they trying to make history?
History was on the table.
Because they were trying to do what?
Go undefeated and win the Super Bowl with Randy Moss.
Trying to do what? Make history, correct?
Yeah.
They after winning that game, winning that last regular season game against the Giants, they were 16-0, right? Currently, the Kansas City Chiefs are 15-2. Side note, John, do you know who was the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants during that time?
I don't.
Steve Spagnuolo, which is really weird that he's back here again and going to be able to witness the Houston Texans do to the Kansas City Chiefs what the New York Giants did to the New England Patriots. John, on that defensive line for the New York Giants, Osi Umenyiora. Osi Umenyiora. Remember him?
I remember him.
What about Michael Strahan?
I remember everything about that season.
What about Justin Tuck, John?
I remember the NASCAR package.
Does it sound eerie familiar to a defensive line defensive line unit that we talked about earlier in the show?
Absolutely.
John, if I'm not mistaken, The New England Patriots had Tom Brady, Randy Moss, Asante Samuel, Vince Wilfork. John, they were primed to go undefeated. Like, if I'm not mistaken, that's the year Randy Moss had 23 touchdowns, right?
He broke the record.
Tom Brady had 50 touchdowns in that season?
He was the MVP of the season.
Right. John, you know what happened at the end? Do you know what happened at the end of the playoffs?
I don't know.
A team that the New York Giants had played a month before and lost to the last game of the season to the New England Patriots. They came back and they had to play them again in the Super Bowl, and the Giants won. Playing a team within a month's time, somebody they had seen, somebody who had something to play for on the line, played their starters. The New York Giants had already secured a playoff berth. They played their starters. They lost by 3 points. Week 16, the Houston Texans lost 27-19. They only lost by 1 score, just like the New York Giants did. Now, this divisional game isn't the Super Bowl for Kansas City.
But it is
what
for
it
Houston.
Is it for Houston, John?
It is for Houston.
A team that they're already familiar with, a team they've already played. They're going back into Arrowhead. John, I am here for the upset. History is going to repeat itself, John. I'm sorry. If you need counseling or therapy, I'm here. After the show is over, we'll talk.
I'm going to tell you why I'm okay. Because if there's any team I want to see replicate that success that the New York Giants had that year, it'll be the team where I'm born and raised from, and it's the Houston Texans. And so I think Houston does have a shot. Again, I don't want to put a score prediction out. I think this is going to be one of those games where I'm going to lock in as a watcher, as a viewer, because I think Houston does have a shot, and I think it all starts up front, getting after Patrick Mahomes, being smart, creating that pressure from the inside out, and on the back end, I'm glad to have the confidence in Miles Bryant to take over at that slot cornerback so we can leave Kamari on the outside. Thank y'all for watching today.
Wait, John, bring it in.
I was trying to, because now you got my feelings hurt a little bit.
Bring it in. I'm gonna hug you.
Thank y'all for watching today's show. Please subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, and give us a follow. Or give me a follow on X at John_Hickman12.
And make sure you follow me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Big Star Sports with the Z at the end.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Texans, go get a dub. Peace.